Chapter 11. Shadows and Stories for Halloween. After several days of steady travel, Emma felt at ease moored in Middlewich, its quiet energy drawing her into a familiar rhythm. The town, with its web of ancient waterways and cobbled streets, had a comforting pull on her. She wandered along the towpath, letting her thoughts drift, absorbing the gentle pace of life around her. Middlewich was a town with secrets, its history whispering from old brick walls and industrial remnants scattered along the canal banks. As she returned to Serendipity one evening, Emma noticed a figure by the water's edge, gazing at the faint reflection of the street lamps on the canal's surface. It was John. She smiled, recognizing his familiar, thoughtful stance. "John," she called, waving. "What brings you to Middlewich?" John turned, his face lighting up as he recognized her. He ambled over, hands in his pockets, and greeted her with a warm smile. "I thought I'd stop by. Middlewich always draws me in," he said. "It's a place with character, don't you think?" Emma nodded, motioning for him to join her aboard Serendipity. They settled on the deck with mugs of tea, the evening air cooling as a low mist began to form over the water. "So, tell me," Emma said, leaning forward. "With all your tales of the railways, there must be a few that are a bit eerie." John chuckled, his eyes twinkling with a mix of amusement and intrigue. "Ah, well, if it's ghost stories you're after, I've got one. But you might want to pull that scarf a bit tighter," he teased, his voice dropping to a lower tone. "This isn't a tale for the faint-hearted."
The story is called Whispers of the Iron Ghost, The Haunting of Engine 564. The wind howled through the desolate valley, and the mist clung to the damp earth like a shroud. Whittlecombe Station sat in a forgotten corner of the Yorkshire moors, where the hills seemed to fold in on themselves, sheltering the tracks that wound through their heart. The station itself was a relic of another time, with its crumbling stone platform and rusting iron lampposts casting a dim glow over the lonely tracks. Old Thomas, the station master, shuffled down the track, his lantern swaying with each step, casting long shadows across the fog. For nearly 4 decades, Thomas had watched over this forgotten stretch of railway, a place where few trains stopped and even fewer people passed. But tonight was different. He could feel it in his bones, an unsettling tension in the air. The fog seemed thicker than usual, the mist curling around the station like the fingers of some unseen spectre. As the clock inside the station ticked towards midnight, Thomas felt an unshakable chill. Harry, the young railway worker, had been at the station for just a few months. The isolation of Whittlecombe was hard for a city boy like him to get used to. But he took the job, lured by the quiet and the peace he thought the countryside would bring. Tonight, though, Harry was restless. He had heard the old station master muttering about strange things, ghost trains, lost souls, cursed engines, but he had dismissed it as the ramblings of an old man. Thomas had seen many things on this line, but nothing as strange as what he called the Ghost Express. A train that shouldn't exist, a relic of a past long forgotten, running its final doomed journey. Harry, sitting on the edge of the platform with his back against the cold stone wall, looked up as Thomas approached. "Ever seen a train that doesn't stop?" Thomas said quietly, his voice barely audible over the whispering wind. Harry frowned, confused by the question. "What do you mean, a train that doesn't stop?" Thomas leaned in, his lantern casting strange, flickering shadows on his wrinkled face. "Some say there's an engine out there, still running. It don't stop for no station, no signal. Just keeps going, no matter who's on the tracks. You'll hear it before you see it. Smoke, fire, an engine from another time." Harry was about to laugh it off when he heard it. A low rumble in the distance, like thunder, but more rhythmic, like the churning of great iron wheels on steel rails. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up as the sound grew louder, the unmistakable hiss of steam cutting through the fog. Out of the mist, he saw it, a towering black locomotive, its wheels spinning like the hands of a broken clock, tearing through the fog at breakneck speed. The engine's furnace glowed a fiery orange, illuminating the swirling clouds of steam that poured from its chimneys. As it roared past, Harry caught a glimpse of the carriages behind it, dark figures seated inside, their faces blank and staring straight ahead. The train screamed through the station without slowing, disappearing into the fog just as quickly as it had arrived. The sound of its whistle echoed through the valley long after the train had vanished. Harry stood frozen, heart pounding in his chest. Thomas nodded sullenly, his eyes dark beneath the brim of his cap. "That's it, lad, the Ghost Express. And if you see it once, you're bound to see it again." The morning after that fearful encounter, Harry felt as though a cloud had settled over him. He couldn't shake the image of the train, its blazing furnace, the eerie passengers with hollow stares, and the feeling that the train didn't belong to this world. As he walked through the village, whispers followed him, tales of ghost sightings and strange occurrences on the railway. Thomas had been right. The Ghost Express was not a mere legend. It was a reality. But what was it? And why had it appeared to them? Seeking answers, Harry turned to Walter, the oldest engineer in the village. Walter had worked the rails for longer than most, his hands gnarled and scarred from decades of toil. He had seen everything the railway could throw at a man, or so it was said. Harry found him sitting in the railway tavern, nursing a pint and staring into the fire. "Walter," Harry began cautiously, "do you know anything about engine 564? I think I saw it last night." Walter's eyes, dull with age but still sharp enough to cut through the haze of memory, locked onto Harry's. For a moment, the room seemed to grow quieter, the crackling of the fire dulling, as if in anticipation of the story to come. Walter leaned forward, his voice low and gravelly. "Engine 564, that's a number I haven't heard in a long while." He took a sip of his drink, staring into the flames as if seeing something far off. That engine belonged to William Wild Bill Hendrick, best engineer we ever had on these tracks, at least until the day he lost his mind. Harry's stomach tightened as Walter continued. Wild Bill, they called him. Man loved speed more than he loved his own life. Always pushed the engines beyond their limits, always trying to set records, always laughing in the face of danger. But there was something dark about him, too. They say he was cursed by the railway itself, by the souls of men who died on the job, whose blood stained the iron rails. Bill didn't care. He kept going faster, harder. Walter paused, his face grim. One stormy night, Bill took engine 564 out against orders. It was pouring rain, the rivers were flooding, and they told him to wait. But Bill never waited. He pushed the engine down the hill, throttle wide open, through the fog and the rain. The brakes failed, and engine 564 plunged into the ravine. No one ever found the wreck, not a trace of it, as if the earth had swallowed it whole. Walter leaned closer, his breath thick with the scent of ale. "Now, lad, the train rides again. They say it's Bill, still trying to finish the run he started, still tearing through the fog, taking souls with him. Anyone who sees it. Well, they say you're marked." Days passed, but Harry felt the weight of what Walter had told him pressing down on his every thought. The eerie sight of engine 564 haunted his sleep, and even in the waking hours, he felt as though he was being watched, as though the ghost train's passengers were waiting for something. Every night, the mist returned, heavier and thicker than before, curling around the station like the grasping fingers of a cold, dead hand. One evening, as Harry was preparing to lock up the station, something strange happened. The old signal box, untouched for years, suddenly lit up with an eerie green glow. The lights on the tracks flickered erratically, switching between red and green with no pattern. The machinery groaned as if being operated by invisible hands, and a strange metallic clicking sound echoed through the station. Harry froze, his heart hammering in his chest. Slowly, he approached the signal box, his hand trembling as he pushed open the door. Inside, the levers moved on their own, as though controlled by unseen forces. The air was cold, unnaturally so, and Harry could see his breath fogging the glass. Suddenly, the telegraph machine in the corner sprang to life, its keys clattering furiously. Harry watched in horror as a single message was printed out. "We're coming." He backed away, his skin crawling with fear. Outside, the familiar sound of the Ghost Express's whistle split the night, long and mournful, carried on the wind. Harry knew then that he had become a part of the train's cursed journey. But how? And what did it want from him? The storm arrived with a fury, whipping the village with gusts of wind and sheets of rain. Lightning streaked across the sky, illuminating the twisted shapes of the hills. Whittlecombe Station felt more isolated than ever, cut off from the world by the swirling fog and the relentless storm. Inside the station house, Harry, Thomas, and Walter sat in silence, waiting. The clock ticked closer to midnight, and the old building groaned under the weight of the wind. Harry's nerves were on edge. He knew the Ghost Express would come tonight, as surely as the storm itself. But this time, he felt something different in the air. The train wasn't just passing through, it was coming for him. Just as the clock struck midnight, the familiar rumble of the train grew louder. The whistle cut through the night, high and mournful, like a soul crying out from the depths of the fog. The platform trembled beneath their feet as the Ghost Express tore through the mist once more, its fire blazing and its smoke choking the air. But this time, the train slowed. The screech of its brakes was deafening, and the wheels ground against the steel rails as the massive black engine came to a stop at the platform. The doors of the carriages groaned open, and out stepped the shadowy figures from before. Men, women, children, pale and ghostly, their eyes blank and lifeless. And then, from the engine, came William Wild Bill Hendrick himself. His figure was tall and gaunt, his face pale and hollow, his eyes burning with an unnatural fire. His once proud engineer's uniform was now tattered and scorched, hanging loosely on his skeletal frame. He moved with an eerie, deliberate slowness, his every step accompanied by the faint hiss of steam and the smell of burning coal. The air around him seemed to shimmer with heat, yet the coldness of his presence sent a chill through the night. His uniform was torn and singed, as though he had walked through the flames of his own wreck. "You're part of this now," Bill said, his voice a low, rumbling growl that seemed to come from deep within the earth. "You've seen the train, and now you're coming with us." Harry's heart raced as the ghostly passengers surrounded him, their hollow eyes fixed on him, their hands reaching out as though to pull him into their world. Bill loomed over him, the flames of the engine casting his shadow, long and twisted across the platform. Thomas and Walter, their faces pale with fear, rushed to Harry's side. "We have to stop this," Thomas shouted, his voice barely audible over the roar of the storm. "We have to change the points." The ghost train fed on fear, on the souls of the living who were drawn into its cursed path. The only way to break the cycle was to divert the train, send it away from Whittlecombe and back to wherever it had come from. But the signal box was under the train's control, and the lights on the tracks flickered erratically. Walter sprinted to the signal box, his old legs carrying him faster than they had in years. Inside, he pulled on the levers, flipping the switches, trying to override the ghostly forces at play. The machinery groaned in protest, but slowly, the points began to shift. On the platform, Bill's fiery eyes locked on Harry, his voice a low hiss. "You can't escape, boy. The rails are forever." But as the tracks shifted, the train lurched forward once more. The ghostly passengers faded back into the carriages, their pale forms dissolving into the mist. The screech of the wheels filled the air as the Ghost Express pulled away, disappearing into the fog, its whistle echoing into the night. As the storm subsided and the mist lifted, the station returned to its eerie, quiet state. Harry collapsed onto the platform, Breathing hard, Thomas helped him to his feet, his face grim. "You've escaped this time," Thomas said quietly. "But the Ghost Express will return. It always does." And so, the legend of Engine 564 lived on, a cursed train bound to the rails of time, forever searching for souls to claim.
As the ghost train faded from the platform of Whittlecombe Station in John's story, a chilling silence fell over the deck of Serendipity. Emma wrapped her arms around herself, not entirely sure if it was the cold canal breeze or the story itself that sent shivers down her spine. "Goodness, John," she finally managed, shaking her head with a half smile. "That was terrifying. I'll be thinking of Wild Bill and that ghost train every time I hear a whistle in the distance." John chuckled, his eyes twinkling with satisfaction. "Aye, that's the mark of a good tale, Emma. The best ones stay with you." She looked up, the faint moonlight casting shadows across the canal. "You'll have to tell me another one next time," she said, half in jest, half in anticipation. John grinned, tipping his cap. "Oh, I've got plenty more stories tucked away, just waiting for the right moment. Next time we cross paths, I'll have one ready for you." With that, the two sat quietly, watching the mist settle over the water, each wrapped in their own thoughts. And as the canal fell back into its usual peaceful rhythm, Emma couldn't shake the lingering echo of that mournful whistle, haunting yet thrilling, a story she'd carry with her along her journey.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this chapter, please give it a like, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more. There are plenty of chapters to come, so stay tuned for the next part of Emma's journey. Looking for more inspiration while you explore canal life? Why not try Audible? Listen to audiobooks on the go, like Emma does on her travels. Sign up for a membership in the description and enjoy thousands of books, including canal-themed stories and more. Happy listening! Please note, the Audible link is an affiliate link, which means I, the author, may earn a commission at no extra cost to you if you choose to sign up.